Hello and welcome back to Red Fox Classics, where you can see we still have the GT6 Mk2 on the rotisserie, or well, you sort of can. Now, I'm not where I want to be at all. What I wanted to be doing, like right now in real time, was putting the chassis together, putting the body back on the chassis, and doing the rest of the repairs. There's a couple of little rust repairs in the top of the A-post, and do my gaps, all that sort. I'm having a real nightmare with bushes. I don't have bushes to let me put the rear suspension back together, because I had a set of poly bushes from one manufacturer. They don't fit, and the bolts won't go through the tubes that supply with the bushes. So I dug around for some spares from another manufacturer, and they deform when fitted, poly bushes these are, so that they're too big to get into the suspension parts, so it's just junk. So I've ordered some rubber bushes, but I need to be getting on with stuff. What we can get on with is this hole here, where there should be a battery box. Now it's down there, so let's fish that out, get it fitted in, and then there's the braces that go on here, need to go onto. And then if we're still waiting for another couple of days, I might come in and try and do some of this stuff. But I'm not, again, I kind of prefer that to be on the chassis, because then the windscreen frame come out and make it easier. Grinding, bit of clean up, then stick the weld on. Now, first of all, I spent about 15 minutes faffing around trying to figure out how we're going to make this drain hole. I'll make the tube that attaches to it. Then obviously I looked at this and realised it was already fitted. So this goes in pretty well. If you clamp it down here, it fits nice and flush. And I think if I screw it down, it's going to work, because that's straight and this is actually slightly dipped, so I think it'll be good there. So I'm chucking the glass cabinet. Just take the paint off the edges. Already cleaned up this. And get some holes punched in it and get it primed and ready to go. Well, there's that in. Obviously it needs grinding and then those need fitting on the edge. There's the one that's fallen on the floor. The one that was here, I think I might put a new bottom lip on. Anyway, it's about 9 o'clock at night, so I'm not grinding this now. But I'll get it done, and then we'll get those reinforcement brackets on. And that'll be that area done. And I have remembered I've got the rear trims for the, well, it's going to be a story in itself. They go under the rear wings. I've got one good one. The other one is not good, and I don't really know what I'm going to do about it. But we shall see. Okay, so this goes on there, but this crease right at the back of the battery box is not quite as good as the, or as sharp as the original, so I've had to just make a little bit of an adjustment there. That will sit on. But this is now angled. So I think I'm just going to have to flatten this out. Flatten it out. I'll try and encourage the bend round a little bit, so it'll meet up with how I've repaired. Well, somewhere between repairing there and there. This being mangled, being removed. It needs a change. So I'll get that rebent and we'll see what we go. Here we go. So I've chopped the bottom off of that and made a new one. Wasn't terrible, but there's all that pitting, which is quite extensive, relatively speaking, and there's a couple of places where whoever ground the bottom off had made it quite thin. So yeah, I think it was just best to make a new flange. So I'm going to get that tacked, get the back trimmed a bit, and just see if it fits, and get it welded up. And I should get that primed and ready to go before I start on that lot of welding. So there is that bit repaired with a new bottom section. And it fits on there. I'll get the holes punched, get that primed, and it'll be on to the welding. So there's one on. I think I forgot to mention, it's easy to tell which way round they go because that is the earth point. So the battery lead negative goes under there into that. Number 2. And there's number 2 on. Obviously got a bit of grinding to do, I'll get that done. Then that's this section done. And we've got wing trims to fit, a bit of repair under here to do, which I think I can still do while the car's on the rotisserie. I think I've sorted all my parts problems though, so I could potentially put it back down there and just see what happens. It's funny looking at it with the full battery tray setup though, because it came without that, so I've been staring at a hole for however long. Well, this is my speaker. Well, this is ground back. There's a couple of welds where I hadn't turned my gas on. So I'll pop the windscreen out. And take the wire brush around here. There's a little bit of damage there, little hole there, a little bit of pitting, and then this was a small hole that I've just made bigger so I can weld it up. So I'm just going to run around. I should be able to weld up that little hole. I can fill in that, and I can get a little disc of metal cut and insert it into that. The other side is probably going to be a little bit worse, but yeah, there's nothing, I can't imagine there's going to be anything too horrendous. I decided that I may as well do these now because axis is going to be better, and it doesn't really matter taking the screen out at this point because the sills are all, you know, the structure of the body is all there. And if this was a Spitfire, because it wouldn't have this to hold it together anyway. So I'll get that done, and then we see what's lurking underneath that side. So, obviously, doors off. I've cleaned down this. Got a small bit of a hole there. Not doing very well in focusing at the moment. And this in here, which is a light. It appears to be just the inside. So it looks like I'm just going to be able to cut a little bit of a strip off there and put a rectangle in. So I'll get with that. Well, I've done that little bit. And I found I needed, looking on the inside of here, this seam, I could see it wasn't very well welded, so I've gone and done some touch up there. I was actually last week, or during last week, I was able to find another one of these, the proper shape. See, this is the one that is rubbish. It's not wide enough. It's not wide enough. The slot in it is not wide enough to go over several sheets of metal. It's not right, not the same length. It's not the same shape. So it is going back. Anyway, it turned out Fitchit still have these proper shaped ones, which is a relief. Anyway, I was thinking, why would I not do these while the car is on the rotisserie? And I remembered why. It's because I'm probably going to need to tap it in, and this is going to get in the way of doing that. And I might be able to just manage it, but I think I'll stick with my original plan and put these on when we're back on the chassis. Which means it's time to put it back in the chassis. Now, hopefully, I've got well, I've got new bushes. I've got rubber bushes. Hopefully that's going to let me put stuff back together. I can't remember if I showed these. So the so this is the example. Once the bush has gone into this spring eye, the tube in the middle is the right size, but the bush is sticking out, and you know it's got to go into that space, and it's not like there's any flexibility in that vertical link. Or you could probably get a millimetre or something if you made a spreader and pushed it, but not that much on both sides. Anyway, I'll do a bit of reassembling, get myself in position to hopefully put some suspension bits on the chassis. For getting the windscreen frame in, what I'm doing, so you have this countersunk screw, goes through the frame, then that goes on. Then inside the roof, you've got this plate and nut. What I found is if I take that, put it in the windscreen frame, and then put a welding magnet underneath the head of the screw, that then lets me thread them both in. Just so I can get just a thread of the knot on, stop it falling out. Then do the other one. Then we start to pull it back and get it in place. There's then some quarter UNF fixings just under the edge of the corners, and that gets all the bolts in loosely. These little bolts towards the back are forcing you to pull the bottom in, which needed. I imagine it'd be much more awkward when the car's painted and the seals are new, but you get the idea. So I have been having no end of trouble with bushes, and I filmed stuff and given up and changed my mind and all that, and I don't know what I'm going to put in. But I bought some poly bushes or polyurethane bushes, and I put the one in here, and it just wouldn't fit. It would, once the bush went in, it was so compressed that it was too big to actually go in the wishbone bracket, or the bracket for this. So I got some rubber ones. I've just been trying to put them in, and that was proving difficult too, just pushing them in. So I'm able to have a little compressor that will squash the bush and let me push it straight in. That seems to have worked quite well. So just demonstrate one. I'm using a bit of washing up liquid inside to lubricate it, and that's just been in the freezer, so I will go in there, tighten it up and squash it together, not including my hand would be good. Before it warms up too much, let's get it pressed in. Well, it worked a little less well the second time, but I've got a bush in there, finally. It should fit in the chassis. And I know it should do because I've already put the right hand one on the car. So, let's get that done. I might have some wheels soon as well. I've thrown the rear suspension together, and as you can see, it's back on the ground, back on its wheels. Now the interesting question is going to be, is it going to roll? Because right now the remains of the rotor flex are hitting the wishbones. Hopefully the weight of the body is going to be enough to deal with that. Anyway, that will be a tomorrow problem for me, because I'm knackered. I'm quite fed up with bushes and crappy repro parts. One last thing I want to do before I lift it up is put some helicoils in here, and I've got real helicoils that I know work for this size. Well, I thought I filmed installing the handbrake, which would have been quite useful. However, my camera decided to get upset somehow, and I don't really understand what it did, but it thinks none of that footage is valid. So, the important bit really is this. The angle, so if you imagine a triangle here, between that point, and somewhere along here, you need 15-degree angle between that point and that point when the handbrake is off, which it currently is. And this is as far back as it will go relative to this cable. So what I did was I made myself a template with 15-degree angle, just using some trigonometry to measure one side and know the 15-degree angle, but however you measure it doesn't matter. And then adjusted how far in this cable is to the handbrake itself to bring that to the right point. Now with that done, it can go over here, because that's the last thing I'll do underneath. And you see also I've stuck these brackets on the grommets underneath them too, just because otherwise they were lying around. Now, let's hope this camera behaves and we can get this lifted over here. I'm slowly working towards cleaning up. I've just been cramming the rotisserie all into that corner. That's gone away. I was getting ready to put the bonnet hinges on, and I found on one of them this centre section, it was parted on one side. So I tried to clamp it to drill it and weld it on the other side, and that tore off the side that was sort of fixed. So I've had that off, blasted, plug welded back on. I'm going to get that painted, and the one over there as well. Then we get the bonnet back on and start fiddling about and getting all the gaps finally right. Well, here we are, finally. Car's back on the ground, on its wheels. Plenty of stuff to do, but it'll roll around for the moment. I've been going around sorting out the garage, stashing away the engine crane, just making sure I've got some free space to work. The balance is loosely back on. Bonnet hinges, or the bonnet hinge bits that go on the chassis, bolt to the chassis, have been painted and drying, or primed and drying. Then we get the bonnet on and start to do all that last lot of gap work. There's also the trims underneath the rear wings, the rear to go on, and I think that's it. So this episode has been a bit scattered because stuff just wasn't going very well, either with the camera or with the parts I had for the car. So we've got what we've got at this point. But next time I'll probably start off with fitting those rear wing trims and then move on and do the rest of the body. So if you want to follow along with that, please come back next time. Make sure you're subscribed, because then you'll be notified, or at least see it in your feed. Thanks everyone who does come back regularly. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.